Okay, guys, we're gonna see how this goes. I'm recording at home. I'm gonna try to switch through a couple different applications for y'all, and then my kids are probably gonna bust in and ask 1,000 questions, but we're just gonna go with it, okay? Because, this is the world of virtual learning, and it's all good, and we're gonna be fine. All right, so this is where you should have left off last week in the interactive notebook. Working on the FRQ. I am going to have y'all turn this in this week just so I can kind of look at it and give y'all some feedback. It's mainly practice, so I care that you did it and that you put forth some effort and that you tried to define and apply. I'm not going to let go take off if they're 100% totally wrong. Again, this is just practice. This is the first time we're doing this, so don't worry about it. All right. So, next page in your interactive notebook is this lovely matching. This is going over just different types of psychology, like what you can do if you choose to study psychology. It's not just, like sitting on the couch talking to people. There's lots of different kinds. So you can use your textbook, you can use common sense, and all I want y'all to do is to draw a line connecting the term to the definition. Okay, that's all you're doing. This is going to be graded for accuracy. So what I would do, as you're watching this at home, pause right here. That way you can do this activity and then you can come back to the next part of the notebook. All right, so what we're going to do today, I'm going to talk about research methods. I'm going to go through why we do research, different ways that we do it. We're going to work through some more pages in the notebook. So I'm going to flip back and forth between the notebook and show y'all what I want y'all to write down and how I want you to take notes. And then I'm going to switch back and forth to my PowerPoint. Like I said, don't feel like you're getting gypped if you're at home watching this video, because this is exactly what I'm going to be doing in class this week on Monday and Tuesday. So everybody's getting the exact same thing. All right. So, y'all don't need to see all the stuff that I have. Okay, let's go here. All right, so for research methods, what we want to make sure is that you know what the different types of research methods are. You can explain the difference, and it's really to make sure that you understand how experiments are set up, because this is where that one research FRQ is going to come in. So you have to know and understand all the different terminology that goes with it. But before I get into research methods, there's a reason why we do research in psychology. It needs to be a science. And so y'all will keep hearing me say this is a science class. Well, there's a reason for that. So first off, we have three things that can cause us to misinterpret information or look at things and cause us to not think critically. They're more roadblocks than anything else. And so that's hindsight bias, which is, I knew it all along. Oh, I knew that was going to happen. I knew we were going to win. And in that sense, your common sense is usually wrong. And then with overconfidence, oh, well, yeah, we have the best point guard in the league. We're definitely going to win. You're just overconfident. So you're more confident than you are correct. And just because you end up being correct in your prediction doesn't mean that the overconfidence had anything to do with that. Then the other roadblock that we have is perceiving patterns in random events. Like, just because this person won the lottery on a scratch-off twice in a row doesn't mean that you're going to win it a third time. Just because you've won the last 3 district games doesn't mean you're going to win the next one. So because we don't like the unpredictable, we look for random patterns in everyday events. So these are kind of things we need to be aware of as we go through doing all of this as we study psychology. So let me shift back. Whoops. This is where this is going to get fun. Okay. So looking over here, let me make this bigger for y'all so we can see. All right. So in your interactive notebook. So why can't we rely on intuition? So for hindsight bias, like I said, it's because your common sense is usually wrong. Okay, it's never really the way you think it is. And then for overconfidence, you're always more confident than correct. So that's how that plays out. All right, so here's what I'm going to have y'all do. Like, I know in your interactive notebook, it says, like, add the MC question here. Forgive me, I will work through this. It'll all get better. I was supposed to put a multiple choice question in your interactive notebook, but I didn't. So here's what I want y'all to do. Pause right here, read through this question, and then just write down which letter you think is the correct answer. A, B, C, D, or E. All right. Now that you've answered your question, let's move on to our scientific method stuff. All right, so there's different parts of the scientific method that we really need to make sure that we understand. We have theory, hypothesis, operational definition. Theory is just your general overall explanation that's going to make a prediction or some kind of observation. Okay, you always start off with a theory, then you're going to refine it into a hypothesis, which you take from your theory, and this is your testable prediction. How can I work my idea so that I can test it, get data, and prove if it's correct or not? And then operational definition, this is the precise definition of how each variable is going to be used in the experiment. You have to say, like, here's what my independent variable is, here's how this is going to work. Here's my dependent variable, here's what this is, how am I going to know if I've achieved it? It has to be very, very specific. And I'm going to show you an example that we're going to use as we go through all of this stuff that deals with, like, sample groups. We're going to have us a workable theory that we're going to go through here. All right, so our example for our theory. You have a test coming up at some point in end of September-ish, beginning of October, somewhere. Okay, so your theory is if you drink orange juice, it's beneficial for your learning. Okay, so in theory, if you drink orange juice, it's going to have a positive impact on how you learn stuff for the class. So let's come up with a hypothesis to test that. If you drink orange juice before you take a psychology test, then you're going to get a better score. Okay, so this is specific. So we're going from a theory to a hypothesis. Now we have to come up with an operational definition. How are we actually going to conduct this as an experiment? So, two things. One, a student is going to drink 12 ounces of concentrated, pulp-free, freshly squeezed 100% orange juice 30 seconds before taking the test. Okay, it has to be specific. These are the parameters, because if someone is going to replicate it to see if your experiment actually works, they have to know exactly what you did. Okay, then so part two, how are we going to know if drinking orange juice helped? Okay, students will take a minimum 50 question psychology test according to content percentage of the AP psychology exam. So if we were doing a mock test, we'd have a minimum of 50 questions, minimizes the percentages, and sorry, my husband's in here conducting his own experiment about drinking coffee and performances for teachers as we have to, like, navigate this virtual. I am on my 4th cup of coffee this morning. Does this make me a better teacher? Yes, it does. So this is how our example works. All right, so now let's shift back to our interactive notebook. So down here, if we are looking at scientific attitude being curiosity, skepticism, and humility. Okay, so for our scientific method, here are the things that we need to fit in these boxes. Okay, so the components, you have a theory, you have hypothesis, and you have operational definition. Okay, these are the 3 big things that you have to have whenever you're designing an experiment. Okay, and then again, why is replication important? It allows you to see if your experiment is accurate. Can it be reproduced? Because that's the only way to see if your results are going to be consistent. Are they statistically significant? And we'll get into that later. So can other people actually replicate your experiment? All right. Now, you're going to do this on your own. So pause here. Just like you did with the other FRQ, we're going to use what we had on the first slide that we talked about earlier, which is hindsight bias, overconfidence, and random patterns. So how would fans of this basketball team use each of these words to explain their loss? So you're looking at how are they explaining the reason that they lost the game. Okay, hopefully this worked and this paused and you didn't hear my 15-minute conversation with my family, but I told y'all my kids would probably bust in and, you know, this is how things are. Okay, so practice FRQ. All right, now you get your chance to practice operational definitions on your own. Okay, so again, pause, and what I want y'all to do is how could you come up with an operational definition to test or prove what what each of these things are. So how could you come up with an operational definition for happiness, for intelligence? Remember, these are just ways that you could conduct a test or an experiment to prove that these are like quantifiable, or to prove them in some kind of quantifiable way. Like, how can you actually prove that they happen? Okay, back to the PowerPoint. All right, so as we go through and we conduct experiments and we're testing our hypothesis and we're trying to like refine our theories, there's different ways we can do this. So we can use descriptive methods, which are ways that you describe behaviors. Okay, so you can use a case study, which is where you go, like, study one person. I'll go over all these again on the interactive notebook, so don't worry about them right now. You can use naturalistic observations. You can conduct a survey. You can also use correlation methods, where you're looking at factors and variables. So, is something a positive correlation? Is it a negative? Is there an illusory correlation? I have to like stop and remember how to pronounce that word. Is there no correlation? So that's what you're looking at with those. That's the lovely statistics stuff. And then when we're looking at our experimental methods, how do we manipulate our variables to look at their effects? So are we assigning individuals to a control group and experimental group? How is that going to play a part? Is it a single blind or double blind procedure? And then what is our independent and dependent variable? We're going to do some work later with independent and dependent variables because that is absolutely important that you know the difference between the two. Okay, that'll come back to you. Hold on. Now let's go over here. And I'm not going to get ahead on these so that you can't just copy everything down and not listen to me explain anything. So, all right, we're looking at research methods. So types of research. So case study, what is a case study? That's looking at a single unique individual, and that has its own strengths and weaknesses. You get extensive experience on some kind of single unique case. Like if you're studying Phineas Gage, who's the guy that had like the pole with an explosion like shoved through his head, that's studying one person. So you can figure out how that instance affected one person. However, you can't apply it to the entire population because it's a single case, it's one person. So that's the weakness with doing case studies, but they do give you lots of fascinating information. All right, naturalistic observation. It's people watching, pretty much. It's watching people in their natural habitat. Its strength and weakness kind of tie together. It's a very, very reliable way to collect data, but it only works if the subject isn't aware that they're being observed. So if you had a teacher trying to look at effects of cheating and or prevalence of cheating among high school students, which we know never happens, but you knew someone was in the room watching you, you're going to be less likely to cheat if you are a person that cheats, which you're not. But if you were, and someone's watching you, you're not going to really pay attention. So that alters the behavior, that alters the dynamics, and you're not going to get accurate data. Jump ahead. Okay, survey. This is a quick way to acquire opinions. You know, like, hi, would you like to take a survey for this class? And you have people, you know, just asking you questions, you're self-reporting. So, I mean, it's usually a good representative answer of the population, because you pick a random sample, and so it usually represents, for the most part, I mean, within standard deviations, how a general population feels. Problems of surveys include things like wording effect. So how do you word something? Instead of, if you, like, for example, we're conducting a survey, like, you know, do you think we should provide aid to the needy? Okay, yeah, more people would say that than if you said the word welfare. It's just connotations with the word. So you can word a survey to get the results that you want. And then also there's social desirability. So, like, let's go back to our teacher looking at the prevalence of cheating. If she did a survey and asked, you know, like, have you ever cheated on a test? There's what's called social desirability. And this is, well, she might know that I wrote the answer, like, this is my answer, and so I'm going to put the answer that I think they want to see versus what I really think. Okay, so that can be a problem with surveys. Okay, correlation studies. These are where you have positive and negative correlations. This is where you're looking at relationships between objects and you're making predictions. The absolute most important thing you have to remember about correlations is that correlation does not mean causation. I can show y'all, actually, hold on, pause, we'll go find it. And I'll show you what I mean. Why correlation does not mean causation. Okay, so here is people who drowned after falling out of a fishing boat, and that correlates with marriage rates in Kentucky. So the information correlates. You have a correlation coefficient of +9, so you want anything between a +1 and a -1. The closer it is to 1, the more closely the relationships are, but obviously one did not cause the other, just because, you know, they fit. Here's the divorce rate in Maine, and it correlates or compares with the per capita consumption of butter in the United States. We have a correlation coefficient of 0.99. I mean, these things you can tell have a very, very strong relationship to one another, but obviously one did not cause the other. So that's what we have to be careful of when we look at correlations. Wait, this one. Okay. Longitudinal studies. This is where you study a group over a long period of time. It's really good for getting data, and I'm looking at long-term effects of something, but it's expensive because you are following someone for years. So that's why that one's bad. And then cross-sectional studies. This is where you're making comparisons among different groups. So it's best if you're studying one person at a time making comparisons. The only problem is it's not going to account for individual differences between people. My kids are at the door singing. So, there you can have problems with that. All right, next page of our notebook. Okay, this is going to be an on your own thing, so pause so you can go write the answer. So you're going to go look at the research method being used and tell me, is it a case study, a naturalistic observation, a survey, a correlation, a longitudinal study, cross-sectional? You're just going to write it out, and then you're going to tell me what makes you think that. Or you can even like highlight or underline over here. I just need to know which type of research method it is and why you think it is what it is. Okay, now that you're done with this, welcome back. We're going to look some more at experimental methods, and here's where you're going to be on your own for this part. Like I said, the in-class people, they're going to have to watch these videos too. So don't feel like if you're at home, you're not getting what they're getting at school. So they're getting the same thing. I have a video over here on correlations. I have a video on statistics, and then I have a video that covers independent and dependent variable. If for some reason these do not link on the PDF, they should, but if for some reason they don't, in today's folder in Schoology, I will have a link to these videos. So I'll make sure that they work to... Okay, so go watch these. That way y'all can get just their real quick little breakdowns of what each of these are. It covers the rest of the PowerPoint. Okay, so after you have watched these, then come back and we're going to do the next slide on here. All right, hopefully you were able to understand the videos. Hopefully you don't have any questions. If you do, send me a message through Schoology. Email me. Okay, but here's what we're doing next. All right, so this is going to go cover the different parts of experiments, okay? And I'll also throw the PowerPoint up there that I've been using because it covers some of this stuff too. But just know that in an experiment, this is where you test a theory or a hypothesis and you're looking at cause and effect relationships, okay? And that's what they show. They're going to show the relationship between two variables. So here are some words associated with experimentation. I want you to do these on your own because I really need you to understand what each of these are. After class, so after Tuesday for you guys, or after Monday for second period, and then after Tuesday for fifth period, I'll go post a video explaining this particular part of your notebook because I want you to do it by yourself. Because I really want y'all to try, not just to have me give you everything. So I will go over this with y'all, okay? So just make sure that you answer this part on your own too. And then what I would really, really like for y'all to try to do after this is to go through and look at these examples of independent and dependent variables and go write them out. What is the independent variable? What is the dependent variable? And this is what we'll do on class, I guess Wednesday and Thursday. I'll walk y'all through this. That way y'all can, make sure that you understand what each one is. But make sure that y'all turn this into Schoology because I do have y'all turning this in. All you're going to do is just upload the entire PDF of this interactive notebook. I know it's not finished. It's fine. It doesn't have to be finished. But this way, I can make sure we're on the right track, and then we can go back over all this independent, dependent variable stuff, and then I will use our examples with the orange juice, and we'll talk about what's independent and what's dependent. But I want y'all to try to take a stab at it by yourselves first. That way you can see if you're on the right track and you get it. Because if y'all get it, we don't have to spend a whole lot of time on it. But I will if we need to. All right, so this is your assignment for this first A day and B day of this week. And like I said, if y'all have any questions, just let me know, guys.